All right. Good evening, people. So I'll just give a light introduction about myself. Hi, my name is B. Good evening to everybody. You're stuck with me for the next 55 minutes, so I really hope I can make it worth your time. So a bit of background about me. I'm a lead consultant product with Elabor8 and also a full stack developer. So that's where predominantly my expertise lie. I migrated from Dubai, originally from Dubai, and migrated to Australia in 2017 May. I came to Brazil on 16th of May and fell in love with the place, fell in love with the people. No regrets. Really, the people are lovely, really warm. So that's really excellent. And I love that relatedness because migrating from a different country and establishing that whole one-on-one equation with new people is sometimes hard, but I think so Brisbane feels like home now. So I'm really fortunate. Few fun facts about me. I'm a diehard fan of Transformers. So you might see my nicknames over Slack or Teams as Optimus. So that's even as a trainer. So I'm also a trainer with scrum.org. I'm a PST. So sometimes I change my nickname to Optimus there as well. A lot into video gaming as well. An avid book reader and yes, music, a very beginner musician as well. So these are a couple of things about myself. So thank you for joining me today. Before I actually go in and start unpacking the whole session for today, I would love to go through some high-level outcomes for this session. Number one is I really want to go through and give you an idea about what design thinking is. It's just a 10,000-foot view of what design thinking looks like, what is the process involved. Then the second outcome is I really want to introduce the double diamond approach. So double diamond is one of the frameworks by which you can apply design thinking. Design thinking can be basically implemented through various frameworks, but double diamond is one of the most popular ones. The third outcome is, in my experience, I personally believe everything is greatly understood if it's through a practical example. So I really want to go through a design challenge, and you will see that how things would change when we started with the design challenge and when we will end up with the new refined design challenge. And at last, what I will do is I'll open the floor for question and answers and for some healthy discussions. I'm also a beginner on this journey, so love to explore the knowledge and share the knowledge with you folks as well. Any questions before I move further? Okay, so what is design thinking? In this particular slide, I really want to give you a 10,000-foot view. I don't want to dig too deep. So design thinking is an iterative process in which you seek to understand your users, challenge assumptions. So when I talk about challenge assumptions, design thinking really treats and tells you how to actually become self-aware of your unconscious bias, right? Knowing the pain points of your customer, redefine the problems and create innovative solutions which you can prototype and test. So overall goal is to identify alternative strategies and solutions that are not instantly apparent with your initial level of understanding. So at the core of design thinking is basically the human, right? So what design thinking basically encourages the organizations to do is to think about the people you are designing the solutions for or the products for, because that would lead to better outcomes and that would lead to better services and quality as well. So what design thinking says is when you are sitting down to actually create a solution for the business need, the first thing which you should be asking yourself is, what is the problem? What is the human problem we are trying to solve? Okay. On a high level, it has 5 phases. So starting with empathy, it's really important to develop that empathy with your customer, knowing the pain points, what are the opportunities, because the better you know your customer, the better it would be, and it would enable you to really define the problem space, hitting the right solutions. Then what you do is you ideate. Once you have defined the problem, you ideate over it, you prototype over it, and then test with your customer. Now, one thing, it looks like a very linear process. It's not. It's a pretty non-linear process. So from any stage, it can go back to any funnel from, for example, prototype to ideate, from test to define. So it's a pretty non-linear process. Any questions in this one? Okay, sweet. Now, I wanted to talk about the double diamond approach. So there are many frameworks out there in the market. Ideas is the most popular one from the company, which employing design thinking. But double diamond was basically introduced by the British Design Council in 2004 or 2005. What the British Design Council saw is major giants like Sony, for example, or at that time Nokia or Google. They saw that designers sit, but they actually try to treat the problem the same way, whatever they want to call them in their own context, but usually the high level strategy is the same. So that's why they came up with this double diamond approach. So if you see from a zoomed out lens, the double diamond approach, it has two spaces you can look at. One on the left side is the problem space. On the right side is the solution space. So on the left-hand side of the things is where you do the research. That's where your divergent and convergent thinking comes in place, where you are using qualitative ideas like user research, user interviews, and then quantitative data to really explore what are the pain points of your customer, know your customer better, right? Based on these things, when you have done your research from a qualitative and quantitative perspective, what happens is it helps you define the problem definition more better. It helps you scope down that focus, that what is that top idea you're trying to actually explore. So once you have defined your problem correctly, then comes the right side of the diamond, which is the solution phase. And this is where you would have ideation workshops, you would develop different solutions to actually test the validation of your idea. And how you do it in a way by which you can rapidly receive feedback from the customer. And that's how, again, I would say that it looks like a linear process. It's not, it's a pretty non-linear process. There would be several iterations of the prototyping you might have to do, several iterations around defining the problem better as well. So that's the double diamond approach on a high level scale. Any questions in this? Okay. And what I want to do now, because I said in the beginning, a problem or a concept is better understood if you can see a practical implementation behind it, okay? So I really want to start with the initial design challenge here. So COVID happened in 2020, all of us know. We were confined in our homes, and that was the opportunity for a lot of us to self-reflect, and sometimes people picked up new skills as well. So February 2021, around September 2020 and February 2021 was the time when I picked the guitar for the first time. I'm a purple brain person, so I do a lot of research on things when I'm picking up anything. So I was reading a Google article, and that article said that 90% of the guitarists, which are beginners, leave their hobby in the first 3 months, primarily because music appears as one single sound to them. And it was not very different for me as well. When I started learning guitar in the beginning, and a lot of my friends who are good musicians, they said, actively listen to the music. But I was like, okay, I can actively listen, but everything seems the same. I can't know where the chords are changing. So what I thought was, if I can have a look at different creative solutions, which will help beginner guitarists to recognize discrete instruments played in a song, that will help them to actually enhance their music knowledge and even smoothen their learning journey as well. So that was the initial design hunch. I thought that if some way I can really understand where are the different instruments getting played, where's the bass getting played, where's the piano getting played, that would help me. So that's my picture. That's my first picture in the guitar gym in Ash Grove. And that was in September 2020. After that, I ran away, and then I picked up the guitar somewhere in December, I guess. So that was my initial design hunch, okay? So again, looping back to what I was describing in the double diamond approach, I would start with the left side on the triangle. That is researching on the problem or researching on the design hunch, which I kind of like thought for myself, okay? So There were different research methods I started with. So the first thing is the qualitative research I talked about. And qualitative research happens when you are basically interviewing your customers, having one-on-one chats with them. So what happened was, because I did say and emphasize in the beginning that what design thinking does is it makes you really aware of your conscious or unconscious bias, right? So what I did was I was like, okay, let's leave everything. Let's start interviewing different segments of the guitar community. Those segments are the beginner guitarists, the people who are advanced musicians in a band or who are teaching music, or some people who are intermediate level. They have progressed from that beginner level, okay? And those, what happened was these were 1 hour long interviews, which I did with these three segments, and it started giving me different insights. And I started challenging my own assumptions that, okay, whatever I started with, it's very different when I'm talking to the real customer, though I'm a customer myself as well, because I was on the guitar journey myself, but it started challenging my assumptions, okay? So that was the first step. Moving on, once I completed the user interviews, basically the first step what I did was I created an empathy map. So to people who don't know what an empathy map is, so empathy map is a tool which was developed by Dave Gray. So what empathy map does is it gives you a better insight about what your user is feeling, what are they seeing, what are they hearing, and it gives you valuable insights. It helps you define your customer better, okay? So there are different formats of empathy maps. Everybody, there are many popular ones, but this is the one I used, basically, where I could keep it simplistic, but it would help me reach the right information I was looking for. So based on this empathy map, what I kind of like as an outcome, I understood the pains and the opportunities in that particular user segment. That is the beginner guitarists, okay? So few of the pains which I kind of like talked with the people was they forget the chord shapes. There's a problem with the dexterity of fingers, like the fretting hand and the left hand, basically. Sometimes people people find it hard to actually press the steel strings, for example, right? The other thing was inconsistent practice routines as well, like a beginner picking up and then leaving for 3-4 days and then coming back. The other thing was can't play complex songs. Again, if I'm listening to a music and if I can't do something with the chords which I have learned, I mean, what should I do with them? So that actually opened a couple of opportunities in my head. First thing was, is there a way where the beginner guitarist can really have the ability to play a simple version of the songs rather than having a complex version, how we can simplify the process? Is there a way where when the guitar is getting played, we can actually recognize where the chords change? Is there a way where we can receive feedback to really make it more fun so that people are having that fun in that practice routine? So that is what the empathy map gives you in a nutshell, is your pain points and the opportunities. All right. Any questions on this? Okay, cool. Moving on, once you have an empathy map, I developed my first user persona for the beginner guitar segment, purely because I felt that this is the segment which is most impacted and it can benefit the most out of this solution. So to the people who don't know what a user persona is, it's kind of a fictional representation of your ideal customer. It just tells you more insights about what is the personality of your customer, right? What is the demographic group? What is the age group it belongs to? What are its interests? So you can unpack a lot in user personas to understand your user a bit better. So my user persona is called as Sam the Curious. So Sam the Curious is an age group where these guitarists are belonging from an age group of 27 to 30 years old. He's an IT consultant. He loves reading fiction. He's a programmer as well. But two of the key things which are important, that he loves acoustic guitar, and his dream is he really wants to play country music on the guitar. So that's the user persona Sam the Curious. One thing you might ask that when I started interviewing the users, there were 3 different segments I was basically interviewing, but I started with the segment which is the beginner guitarist purely because of the value. So you have to think rather than going as a big bang approach of designing your product, you need to zoom in. You need to zoom in where the benefit resides the most, okay? Moving on, once I had the customer persona designed, I actually started a customer journey map. So on a high level, a customer journey map is basically the series of steps or a process which a user follows to reach his goal or an outcome. So in this user journey, basically I focused on one flow or one part, which is Sam's guitar practice routine. Like what he does when he picks up the guitar, what is his guitar practice routine looking like? The other cool thing about user journey maps is it actually gives you valuable insights of the highs and lows of your user segment as well. So on a zoomed out lens, if I talk about the journey which Sam takes is hypothetically considering he's a beginner guitarist, he has not practiced guitar for a few days and he picks up the electric guitar and he plugs it in the amp. So when he plugs it in the amp, there are different modes and he's like really confused which mode would go with me. So anyways, he selects a mode and then he actually plays 2 or 3 open chords. So usually the people who start learning guitar, it's like an E major, A major, and B major. These are 3 easiest open chords they start with, and with some light strumming patterns. So what he realizes is when he tries to do this thing, the chord switching sucks. He is trying to A to D, it sucks. So that's where the morale goes down. So the other thing he thinks is, well, I have learned these chords, but I can't do something with it. I cannot jam along a track. So what's the use? So he gets really frustrated and really anxious about it. Then what he does is he actually goes to YouTube and searches a simple song using E and D chord on a Justin Guitar YouTube channel. So if you don't know about Justin is a great YouTuber, like there for 10, 11 years, and has helped a lot of beginner guitarists. Basically, a lot of people have learned seeing his tutorials. So he actually goes to the Justin Guitar, he knows 2 chords and actually searches the song, tries to imitate the melody of that song tutorial, feels happy that yes, it's sounding melodious, but again, it goes down because as soon as Justin starts playing the same song in different keys, he's like, what the heck is going on? I don't understand. So he stops playing the guitar. So that's the guitar practice routine of Sam. But now, if you can see from a user journey perspective, what whole of this process is giving is basically insights and opportunities how we can improve his experience. So a couple of opportunities is how to make the practice consistent, okay? How we can help them switching the chord timing. Or, for example, how we can help Sam to actually track the progress to stay motivated. Is there a way we can teach him the rhythm of the music? So these are the different opportunities by understanding the highs and lows of this customer journey. Okay. Any questions on this? All right. This slide is basically when I talked about the left side of the diamond, you need to use qualitative research and quantitative research. Quantitative research is where you are using pretty much real data. I didn't use a lot of real data. I had the real data because I'm a beginner guitarist myself. I speak to a lot of beginners. I have a big Instagram community as well who are beginners. But one thing to be very aware about metrics or the quantitative research is measure the outcomes, and those should be leading indicators, the things you have influence on. And once you measure the outcomes, you would have impacts like lagging indicators and all. So one thing where people get really stuck is they actually choose a big subset of metrics to actually start researching on. Well, and they don't have a clear idea of what is a leading metrics and what is a lagging metrics. So I always say that if everything is important, then nothing is important. So please choose a small subset of metrics to focus on when you're doing the quantitative research. Right. Now, once I had done basically the whole divergent thinking, okay? It was the time to really start converging and redefining my problem, okay? So as I was mentioning, I interviewed 3 user segments. So at the back, I had 3 users personas created, but I only picked one. So first was Sam the Curious, who was the beginner guitarist. Hunter the Wizard was the person who was very experienced, who was a musician, and Charlie the Explorer was the intermediate one. So what I did was I did an affinity mapping exercise around the themes across these 3 user segments. So if you don't know what affinity mapping is, so affinity mapping is an exercise where you can actually start theming up common things across the 3 user segments, okay? So what I did was I started grouping common themes across these 3 user segments, and there were some real key insights which came in. So a couple of people, and even which was common across the 3 segments, was that adult learners are difficult to be taught. It's a child is easier to be taught, but adult learners are really hard. The other thing was the beginner guitarists felt that we want to really build along a song. Rather than only playing some chords, we really want to understand the rhythmic context. So we really want to build a simple song. Then dexterity of fingers. The other thing was the learners who are adults, basically, they don't actively listen to the music. So music is like a language, right? So a baby, if it's a small baby, they keep listening and then they start talking, right? So it should come naturally. Same is the case as if you really want to learn music, you have to actively listen to really start talking that same vocabulary. So on a high level, a couple of themes which were really bold was beginners are not finding any fun in their practice routine and they can't visualize the progress, okay? And there was no clear way to receive feedback, and that was making them really demotivated, all right? So once I had these affinity mapping themes grouped, the next thing was basically, what are the key insights? What are the top 2 things which we can select to really play around, which would have a real impact on this segment? So those insights basically were that beginner guitarists find no fun in their practice sessions, which result in inconsistent practice routines. So learning anything, learning a language, learning an instrument, you have to be very consistent with it. Okay, so if you're not consistent, you can't. And if you are not having fun in what you're learning, there's no way you're going to turn back. And then there was no ability to visualize the progress and receive feedback. Now, based on these 2 insights, it was the time to really reframe that design challenge, okay? So one of the techniques which I used for reframing this design challenge was using the how might we statements. So how might we statements is a very powerful tool by which you can convert the insights into real opportunities. So the reframe challenge was, how might we help beginner guitarists to have fun during their practice sessions so that we can improve their learning experience and enable them to see progress? So if you see, with this refined design challenge, I have basically plucked out that discrete instruments, that the ability to recognize them. And we are focusing more on the real outcomes, that how we can bring that fun element in their practice sessions. Okay. So that's how from the start and started changing. The whole problem space started changing. Any questions up till now? Or happy for me to keep moving? So
this is really good. I'm just having an observation from my side is that I don't think that people often approach problems like learning guitar in this way, and I don't think that they'd get to the same insights that you've got to if they didn't. So I think it's a really powerful technique from what I can see.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So once I have the redesigned or reframed design challenge, it was time for ideation. So ideation means now we are moving, if I just go back a couple of slides to the double diamond, just I want this picture in your head that we have done the discovery, we have done the research, we have explored the problem, we have redefined the problem definition. So we are at this spot right now. Now is the time to start developing solutions and really testing it with the real customers. Okay, so we are on the right side of diamond at this stage. So quickly moving forward, with ideation, what I did was I ran the ideation workshop with a very diverse group of users. So one person was a product owner, one was a business analyst, and one was a UX designer, all different companies, different level of experiences. This person was an intermediate person. She doesn't know how to play. So I was actually talking an ideation to a person who doesn't know how to play guitar. And the best ideas sometimes come from people who don't know how to play. And Denny was also a beginner. So what happened after the ideation workshop was there were tons of ideas which were generated. And what we did was we actually grouped the ideas together. Like we had two teams, team one and team two, like we were 4 people. But what we did was we kind of like grouped the similar ideas together. Okay. Now, once we had the ideas group, we actually use the ideas selection and prioritization metrics. And we started prioritizing what would be the best idea to start implementing and ideating on. And how we did was we actually used the idea prioritization metrics, and there were a couple of parameters which we were actually baselining our prioritization on. One was immediate impact, how we can create that ripple of change quickly. Second thing, because it's a design challenge, there's nobody is funding that. We had to be economically very viable, economically very light, not consuming too much resources, keep it really lean. And third was, how we can enable that rapid feedback from the users. Okay. So based on this 3 parameters, we actually prioritized the ideas. So there were top 10 ideas. I can go through the top 1 and the last 2. So ability to jam along original track. Then AUX chord integration was one. App that provides single player and multiplayer mode that increases the competition to make it more fun, where people can compete with each other. This one was very interesting. It was using a loop station to play a song. So loop station is where you can record chords and then you can start improvising them on. So it was kind of a loop station. Chordboard integration or use program like Loom to bring more fun, more like a gamifying experience. And video feedback, record and review. So these were like the top 10 ideas, okay? But the idea which we selected, it had 3 reasons why we selected was jamming along a track. So 3 things I would like to highlight, like learning an instrument like guitar is a long process. It's not a sprint, right? So if we can actually have that ability, we can introduce that ability where a beginner can come and actually play a simplified version of the song along an original track. What it will do is it will open that person's learning to the rhythmic context. Where is the pulse? Where is the beat? What's happening? Basically, they can understand music better. The second one definitely is it doesn't need a massive financial investment. There are many apps out in the market which can provide and help them. And the other thing is you can record your progress, and everybody has an Insta. I'm sure everybody has. They can actually upload their recorded videos on Instagram, and Instagram is a lovely community for guitarists. If you're really serious, start uploading. There would be tons of people who would provide feedback to you. Okay. So that was the reason why we selected this whole idea. Moving forward, now is the fun part beginning, that we had to actually prototype and test it with the real users. So what I did was I made a storyboard. It's a user storyboard, and it's a low fidelity prototype, and it's a crappy prototype. I just took a paper and I just drew what my storyboard would look like. So the storyboard had 6 steps. The first thing was the user goes to YouTube, searches a song. The second step is the user plays the song and listen to it for 1 to 2 minutes, just to understand the rhythmic context of the song, where the beat is, where the drums are, where the chords are changing. Third thing, they actually go ahead and download the Justin Guitar app. So Justin Guitar app comes with hundreds of preloaded songs, which you can use as a backing track. You can change vocals, you can like play a lot with percussions, and a lot of different things you can do with that app. So once the user has downloaded that app, the person would search the same song and actually play that song on the Justin Guitar app as a backing track. And the other beauty of the Justin Guitar app is that you can actually select the tempo, like the beats, how fast you want to go, how slow you want to go. So that would address that chord switching and all. So once somebody has played and used that as a backing track, played along with the Justin Guitar app, recorded and uploaded it on a website or Instagram. So that was a high-level user storyboard I had in mind. So these are the samples of the Justin Guitar app, which I have just attached. So these are the places where you can actually change the percussions. You can change guitars, vocals. You can like change the tempo, what is the BPM, how fast you want to play it. And then what I did was I actually went back to the real users who I interviewed first and tested my prototype with them. I walked them through the user storyboard. I gave them the insights that how my design challenge has changed. And they actually started mimicking and seeing whether they saw the value in that prototype or not. Okay. This is our lovely Dave Price. I'm quite sure a lot of people know him. So I tested that with Dave as well. Actually, I'll play the feedback from the real user, that what they gave as a feedback to us.
Because like you said last time we met, a lot of people quit guitar in the first few months. And it's probably just because of that frustration factor. But if you just work with just even super simple scales, it sounds like you're making proper music. Because with chords, they can sound good, but just playing, like even introducing a minor melody, like that already sounds very musical. Yeah. But if you just start, for example, with the thing that I just played, with just with that, yeah, like it sounds cool, but you're not really sure what to do with that. But if you're just shown how to use a scale, you have any note on here that you can do whatever you like with.
So that was the real feedback from one of the users. I really want to play what Dave said as well. So let me just share what's Dave's feedback was on. Excuse my desktop, it's a developer's desktop. So
Sorry, B, you've gone a bit soft all of a sudden.
Can you hear me?
A bit better now, yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You're very soft.
Is it okay now? Is it better?
It's a bit better.
Okay. So I will actually play what Dave said. So this is another feedback from Dave Price.
This is our user storyboard at this stage. And this is how the flow is. What would be your feedback around the solution itself? Like, does it need pivoting, or we could bring in some more elements to bring fun in this?
So I think the level that I'm at, having something like this where I can pick a song, see what chords is, and just play along. It resonates with me at the moment. So I'm consciously at the moment trying to pick a suitable time to learn to practice, but having the incentive with I can find a song and then coupling that with the ability to do it with other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you see it from a value perspective? If I just try to pivot the solution somehow, will it be something more as a meetup you would be more inclined to do, or it could be something where online people can jam together? Obviously, they would have their room settings, and in that way they can see each other more better. But what do you reckon? Will it be your preference would be a social meetup sort of a thing, or a website sort of a thing?
So I haven't really thought that far yet. I just like the idea of, if I'm trying to get to practice, having the incentive that other people are waiting for me is more likely to mean that I will practice rather than just go, So I very often set meeting invites in my calendar to practice, but I always get distracted. But if I've got to do something to meet up with it, I think that would probably help a lot with the focus.
So let me share my slide deck again. So one of the things you can see is the power of the low fidelity prototyping. It's not something very expensive. You can just go to the user and you can start testing your validation and testing your hypothesis, okay? So once the feedback was given, there were two things which were very insightful from two different user segments. One was they're going to basically practice more better if they are in a social setting like a meetup group. That is what will make them more, because they can receive instant feedback, they can have that fun element. The second thing was, if beginner guitarists can learn scales, that is more melodious. They prefer to learn scales early in the journey, purely because a scale is easy to learn than a chord, because with scale you can actually do a lot of different cool things and it would actually sound like music. So based on that, what I did was I did a second prototype testing, a second iteration. But what I want to do is I want to give you a real simulation where I brought in this, the jamming element along with another musician, that how it felt like. Okay. So this is.
I think they're okay. Sure. Here it is. I can quit. I'm comfortable at 140.
I'm also a beginner guitarist, so I can jam along with you, maybe.
Let's see what well.
So just the design solution came out to be, if you can understand what I did in that previous video was, I was actually doing only two chords. It was an E and a D major chord. It was D and A major chord, but I had understood that pulse, that rhythmic context, when the chords are getting changed, when my other fellow guitarist changing. So we both were very much in sync. So I was only just playing a single strum on basically a chord change. A lot of other things were done by the backing track and the other musician, but it sounded melodious and it was fun. Okay. So the design solution came, the immediate was start with a social event in your neighborhood for beginner guitarists. Post the song of the week and jam along with the other musicians, because then you receive feedback, you can improvise, you can gamify the experience. Record your session and upload it on the website. So I just want to give you a bit of like what has happened since then. So this was my first simple song, which I built with a minor pentatonic scale. So I'll just gonna play. And that was the feedback which was coming from one of the players, right? Just a minute. It was not sounding melodious. can see with only a minor pentatonic scale, I actually created a rhythm. And it was a backing track, but a lot of melody was coming from that scale. And it was sounding very rhythmic to me. I don't know about you guys. So the other thing was, obviously things have changed since I started and now I play much better. So this was around jamming with the original version of one of the songs of Ed Sheeran. So I think so with whole of this design thinking and the approach to music, I think so it has simplified and opened a lot of different ideas which we didn't think before how we can approach the music learning. And that's how I just wanted to take you on the journey of how you can use design thinking or similar kind of approaches for unpacking or learning anything new. So thank you very much for your patience, for listening to me. And I hope this session was useful. So I'll stop sharing and I'll open the floor for questions.
Thanks, B. That was really, really insightful. So one question that I've got is, so when you get to the end of the process, have you got to a point where you've got something that you feel that you'd be able to scale, and what sort of success stories have you got at the end?
Of this particular?
Or that you're aiming for in the future?
Really aiming for, I think so. I like to keep it very organic. I'm not tying it towards an outcome. I really want to play in a professional band setting, maybe in 2 years' time. One of the immediate things, if I can play a guitar track in front of 100 people, it would be quite good. And I can play with this right switching, right timing, and just understand a bit more about music. So it's not only about jamming along a song, it's more around, okay, what is the music theory? What are the foundations behind it? Because it's, for me, every person is very different. There are people who I know are very good guitarists, but don't know anything about music theory. They have just gone and self-taught from YouTube. But on the flip side of it, I like to do my own research. I like to learn different things. So my thinking is, if I can start reading sheet music or start doing really something in front of some people, that would be really cool.
So it was a technique that you used not just for helping other people to learn, but also something that you could apply directly to your own personal development. Absolutely.
And I kind of think that learning new skills open different horizons and different approaches. So I'm a very visual person. So if you're talking a lot of theory to me, I don't understand. If you can draw a picture to me, a picture tells 1,000 words. Similar cases, like I can read about design thinking in 100 different ways, but if I can really practically implement it and make a picture about it and make a story about it, I think so it will live with me forever. That's how I see it.
So it sounds like some patterns that one can use to say that if you want to learn something new, whether it's music or it's some other aspect, that you can apply the structured approach to self-development.
I think so. It's heavily used in product development as well. So if you really want to test your product development hypothesis, design thinking is a great way. Specifically the prototyping aspect of it, I would say the way Google does it, it's extremely amazing. They make really pen and paper prototypes. They don't invest a lot of time using Figma or high level products. And you can actually validate more quickly. I would say that basically design thinking unpacks your product development, not only personal development, product thinking.
So there's a question from Lay in the chat saying, thanks for sharing a practical and personal example of using design thinking. Is there any example or scenario where design thinking is not suitable to be used, and what would be the better approach / methodology for that case?
I would say that like Agile is not a fit for, like Scrum, we talk about Scrum. It might not be for every every space.
Mhm.
Same as the case, I would say design thinking is very, very heavily used in the product thinking space. And you can use it in any space you want to. Some of the things like infrastructure and all of these sort of things, maybe design thinking might not be the right approach to use there. The better approaches to use there would be more a Kanban sort of a way if you're an infrastructure sort of a person, or some lean techniques basically to really, because the point is like whatever framework you use, the core is to enable that rapid learning. Either it's design thinking or any other thing. So anything which can incorporate that rapid learning, that inspect and adapt culture would be fit. Hope this answers your question, Lei.
So I've got a thumbs up from Lei. So other questions for B? So I'd like to thank B for a really fantastic session. I think from my side, I really enjoyed going through that, looking at design thinking from a different approach. I think it was really refreshing for me to see it used in when applied to learning music, because I haven't approached personal learning in a way that's as structured as that. So, and definitely something that I'm going to be applying the next time I want to learn something new. So absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
No worries. And I think Saleh has a question that infrastructure, why not suitable for design thinking? I think so. One way to think about is if you think about infrastructure, right? A lot of things are known. What kind of load do you want to give? What kind of other aspects so you have very tight constraints and boundaries already defined. So that will not enable a very creative process thinking if we bring in a heavy process like design thinking in infrastructure, because you are basically using either some standard services like AWS for your infrastructure, which has already done that whole good thinking. So you don't need to re-engineer the process. While design thinking more is in the space where you know very little about the problem and you really want to unpack it more. And infrastructures, like, I kind of think it's very standard. Things are already there in the market. People have done the good job already. So that's why.
Cool. Well, I might stop the recording at that point, so then we can open the floor for perhaps some more general conversation. So